call this budget workshop to order. It is Wednesday, February 18th at 1:05 in the afternoon. We've got a full day. We got the budget workshop, and then, of course, we have the City Commission meeting at 3 o'clock. Just want to remind you, since we will be taking action at this workshop, we will be taking public comment. So if there's anybody here that would like to speak on the topics discussed today, we will be taking public comment. So, Jim, let's make sure that we have the opportunity for citizens to fill out the sheet. And while I know we put the microphone away, we need to find a way to make sure it's recorded. So, all right. Sounds great. With that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief, allow time for the presentation and discussion. As you mentioned, this is the budget workshop. This is your first budget workshop of the budget cycle. We'll go over a number of things, including progress this year, as well as looking at next year, kind of taking an early peek into what we see on the horizon for next year. Robert will say this, but I think it's probably important for me to say it at the outset of this, is that I think this next year's budget probably has the most uncertainty we've seen in a while. There are a lot of things that are in play. We know about the property tax discussion at the state level, even at the state level in terms of sales tax revenues that we share in. Forecasts are very soft on that. And so I think you see that reflection of uncertainty in our initial forecast looking at next year. And then finally, there are a couple of budget items that we need you to act upon. They're good news items, building on the success we've had in getting grants for our community. And so that's the agenda for today. Robert and his team are here. They've done a good job, and they'll walk us through the presentation.
Great. Once again, Amy, Max, Robert, thank you all very much for everything you do year-round. Am I mistaken? Were we just recognized once again for budget excellence?
Yes, sir. How many years, Robert?
It's 40 years.
Four years in a row.
40.
40 years in a row. Nationally recognized for budget transparency and excellence. That speaks volumes. Thank you for all you do. Y'all have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, City Manager, Mayor, Commissioners, appointed officials, and members of the community. As we often do, we hold these quarterly budget workshops, as the City Manager mentioned, to bring you up to date of where we currently stand in our budget, because that then informs us of where we could be in fiscal year 27 as we begin to develop that budget. City Manager Goode mentioned this, but I've been doing this now for 10 years. And he mentioned the uncertainty. I will say positively, the uncertainty is not in our priorities. It's not in the positions that work towards those priorities and our staff. It's really some outside forces and then some changes in the economy that we're paying close attention to. And so it's going to bring to bear a lot of our resources to figure this out. We are not going to get ahead of anything so that we're not doing anything unnecessarily, but we're going to be reasoned and cautious and proactive to be able to be in the right position in this next fiscal year. The goals for today are pretty simple. We want to talk about our strategic plan priorities and where we are. You're very familiar with those, so I'll be quick with those. Our first quarter budget status will be reported upon, and then as City Manager Goode mentioned, we've got a handful of amendments to bring us current in the fiscal year 26 budget. We've prepared some initial projections for fiscal year 27, and as a result of that, we know some assumptions. We've got to start somewhere with what we look forward to in developing a 5-year budget, and we'll affirm those today with staffing and operations and investment costs, and then we'll, of course, have frequent updates. What we'll ask you to do is accept the first quarter budget update as presented, approve the budget amendments as included in the update, and then provide any additional direction for developing the fiscal year 27 operating and capital budgets. That's the fiscal year 27 through 31 operating budgets. I'd like to begin by acknowledging what we have accomplished as positives. There's a number of accomplishments there in capital investments, key public infrastructure work, human service work. leveraging operational efficiencies to reduce costs. I think we've referred to that as sharpening the pencil in the past, and we've been able to successfully do that annually over the last few years, up to $6 million. This is going to take a box of pencils, this budget, but we'll work towards it. And then, you know, we continue to invest in resources to enhance quality of life. One unique one is elevating fire protection to move from an ISO 3 to an ISO Class 1, and then the Tallahassee Police Department and Public Safety. With that strategic plan as our guide to use those resources, this should be a familiar, quick reference tool that we use to give you a status update on where we are in the first quarter of fiscal year 26. The table displays our 14 operating funds, and then we color code to let you be aware of where we think we will end the fiscal year. Green is where we expect to end within budget. Yellow, we consider that we need to do some monitoring, and then red, we'd ask for some immediate action. We wouldn't want to wait until the end of the fiscal year. We've evaluated these 14 budgets based on a number of factors, and those are also displayed here, where we've got the key goals of the department, the actions that we take on a regular basis to monitor the fund, and then anything that needs to be monitored going forward. You know, as you notice, the general fund, we've got property tax collections, the general fund transfer, and then operations are progressing well. And we can say the same for our utilities. There are 2 funds that we are monitoring, and these are funds that we are aware of on an annual basis and have discussed regularly. You'll recall late in the 26 budget cycle, we implemented just a portion of the fire rate study. And so because only a portion of that fire rate study was implemented, it shifted staffing from the expected expansion that we were working towards inward to focus on city response times and city staffing. And so it will take careful management of those revenues so that we make it through the 5-year cycle of where we want to arrive at in the fire fund. And one of our amendments actually reflects some of that good management that we're working towards in providing gear for the firefighters. Another area that we're monitoring closely is Star Metro. Our transit system, much like national transit systems, are always constrained by revenues that are coming in. You'll recall in our closeout item that the general fund subsidized or supported the Star Metro fund at the end of the year to balance that budget. And we know that we may be in that situation again. And so we want to closely monitor the fund, and all with a goal of meeting the high standards that they have for on-time performance and service level and available routes. And so we'll continue to evaluate that as we go forward. With the strategic plan in mind, the status of the fiscal year 26 budget, I want to take the opportunity for some amendments. You know, this is one of the strengths of the process that we bring forward, is that as we learn information, because we have these regular meetings, we can bring them forward and update the fiscal year 26 budget. And so those budget amendments are on slide 5. We're asking you to approve an amendment to the fire department budget of $542,000 for the purchase of bunker gear. They have a capital budget where they manage their maintenance costs, they manage their large vehicle purchases, they manage their routine vehicles, and they've managed to realize some savings in there, and so want to apply it to buying additional bunker gear. We're also asking for an amendment for the Southside Cemetery. It's a combination of land acquisition and site work, relocating a gopher tortoise or 2 maybe, bringing them to the other side of the airport is what I hear, so it's not a long trip for them. And then also the first of a 10-year payment for the acquisition of the land to be paid back by the airport. As you remember, we have these 14 operating funds, and there's very strict controls between those funds. And so because we're working between the cemetery fund and the airport fund, FAA regulations and many of our policies and practices require that we make sure that we're making the funds whole. We've got two following amendments for the electric utility, $2 million for growth in the system, new service installations, ongoing residential development, good news, and then a warehouse expansion, of course, to supply the work that's being done across the community. There are two other amendments that we've brought forward as recent awareness has come about. Obviously, the awareness was not our application or request for the money. It was that we were being awarded the money or it was forthcoming very soon. The police department had a public safety campus project for $2.1 million for an indoor training facility, and that was approved. And then the airport has a resiliency project to install utility poles and overhead power lines near the airport for $2.85 million. And we're asking for your action to add this to the fiscal year 26 budget. As we fulfill our strategic plan priorities, develop responsible budgets in 26 and an awareness of where we are, we also then like to evaluate ourselves. And this is a familiar tool that we use to identify the basket of services that we provide to the community. As you're looking at the graphic, you'll see that there are a number of communities that we've identified that provide services in a similar manner. They're not all the same because some use private entities to provide the services in electric and water and sewer, and others, how they budget for those services is different. For example, in fire services, some communities have a fire services fee and some pay for it out of the general fund. And so what we've done is we've looked at that city property tax bill, a water bill, a sewer bill, electric, solid waste, stormwater, and fire services as comparatively among other communities. We standardized across the communities so that it's a fair assessment. We looked at variations in property value. We've looked at variations in usage of the utilities, and of course, considered all of the same services that are being provided. Glad to report that as we typically do, we've been doing this now for 10 years. We are among the lowest for cost of living for the services we provide. And in fact, we've identified that in other cities, on average, they're paying 24% more for these services than the city of Tallahassee, and at the extreme, 71% more. I like this metric for not just the reason that it makes us look good, but there are factual numbers that are behind this that we can say, okay, here's what people are spending in other communities for the very services we provide. One standard that we have too is that we're not going to be the cheapest because we've got very high standards as far as efficiency, effectiveness, reliability. And so as you look across the graphic, you'll see in different portions of it, we have high standards for advanced wastewater treatment. And so our sewer bills may be a little bit higher. Our water bills for protection of the aquifer are very important to us. But when you put all of these services together, then we are very strong, and it's a good metric to look at to make sure that as we make these decisions in developing the next year budget, that we're not putting ourselves out of reach of our citizens. And that's what you've instructed us to do, to be is steadfast in being cost effective and affordable. I'll just add to it that in this graphic we have the third lowest millage rate among these 12 communities. But when you look across the state, we've got lower property taxes among the top 20 largest municipal governments in Florida. And so those are governments like Miami, who's on this list, but it's also Tampa and Jacksonville and Orlando and St. Pete. So much larger communities where we compete compare ourselves well in our property tax rate. And then we, as I mentioned before, I'll repeat myself again, we've got the greatest land area among these 12 to serve, and over 40% of our properties are off the tax roll. And so again, I think that speaks well to what we can accomplish with the resources that we have. Similarly, we look at residential property taxes and services from our utilities, but we also look at how it affects our business community. We look at a comparison of a typical office, a typical retail facility, a typical food service, and again, compare very favorably to those. And I think that speaks to why then we're recognized in surveys and publications like the Area Development Magazine that ranked Tallahassee as one of the top 5 medium-sized metropolitan areas for businesses. So with that strategic plan in mind, with the building blocks of where we are with our fiscal year 26 budget, our evaluation measurement of where we compare from a municipal cost comparison perspective, then we begin to assess some of our fiscal year 27 assumptions. And I bring this graphic to your attention because it demonstrates very well where we focus most of our time, the general fund. We know it has the most constrained revenue sources. It has the most demand for services. As you look at the 2 pie charts on the screen, the general fund funds critical services like public safety, parks and recreation, public infrastructure, housing and human services. When you look at our 2 main general fund revenues, property taxes in blue, contribution from utilities in red, and then compare them against our expenditures, they don't match up. So we've got to make up the difference. And we devote all of our property taxes to public safety as our primary priority. That comes up short when you compare the 2 amounts, the $77.8 million and the $82.9 million. And so we make up that difference. So it's why we have a general fund transfer. It's why we use state revenue sharing and sales tax and communication sales tax. If you were to look at the details of the general fund, there's over 70 revenue sources in that general fund. And we studiously look at each one of those because they're so critical to make up the difference between what you're seeing in the graphic here. On the right side, our priorities in public safety, investment in capital, parks and seniors and animals and neighborhoods are all need the resources of the property tax, the contribution from the utilities, and those 70 other accounts that we assiduously follow and track. And this was mentioned by the city manager, and we talked about it in the strategic planning presentation. We know that we have current controls on property taxes. Excuse me, homestead exemptions are in place. A constitutional amendment was passed to increase exemptions already that we're dealing with. We have noticed sales tax holidays. They're fantastic weekends to be able to go back to school or take an opportunity to buy supplies for a certain event. But those sales tax holidays, we're seeing a reduction in our sales tax revenue as a result of that. And then some of there are some exemptions that have occurred in those sales tax revenues that then we're seeing the beginning results of that in our tax base. So I give that as background to then talk about some of the highlights of the fiscal year 26 budget that we are affirming. Excuse me. As is familiar, our total budget is $1.2 billion across the 14 operating funds. Within the general fund, where we focus most of our attention, the 26 budget continued funding for youth, mental health, and community initiatives. Out of the existing resources, we've been able to pull together about $51 million since fiscal year 2018 to address those aspects of our community, Tempo, a team, and TIFLA, and so many of the initiatives that we've undertaken. We've done that within existing resources, and we're committed to continue to do that in fiscal year 27. We maintain existing level of services in our operating expenses, staffing levels. They're the engine that enables us to accomplish what we do on a daily basis, and that allows us to meet the service levels for Parks and Rec, public infrastructure, housing, and community resilience. And then we maintain a $4 million contribution for human service funding and special initiatives, which includes the $2.9 million for the CHSP program. So again, with that as the backdrop, guided by the strategic plan, aware of fiscal year 26 budget, maintaining low-cost services, and then continuing the priorities above, we then have some initial estimates or initial understanding of what our budget might look like in fiscal year 27. And I almost have to laugh because we are always very stressed when we see a $3 or $4 million budget deficit. When we look at our general fund deficit based on the assumptions that we're making, we're estimating an $8 to $12 million deficit in fiscal year 27. That's a difficult amount. We commit to setting the millage rate at 4.4072, the same as the prior year, which is part of the assumptions for our revenues. And as I mentioned, the 2025 Homestead Constitutional Amendment and sales tax holidays are going to impact our revenues by $2 to $3 million. And so those revenues are part of that equation. The other half of that equation then are expenditures. We're going to continue to invest in roads and sidewalks and utility and technology so that we can maintain the financial performance metrics and balance. And we do that by balancing cash, debt financing, or other grants or local agencies funding, as the two amendments that we are bringing forth allow us to do, stretch the dollar a little further. As we look at the general fund, we are asking them to keep operating costs at fiscal year 26 levels. For the utility funds and fee-based departments, we can adjust those costs by CPI, except for those cases where you've directed us to take into account the market and or a portion of our community that we want to make sure that stays involved. Many of our youth sports, those fees are kept low so that participation can remain high. And then we'll continue to invest that $4 million in local human service needs and have a robust capital plan to make sure that our infrastructure is solid. This process won't be our usual process. I think we've got to take our time, wait for, plan ahead, but wait for things to actually happen before we take action. We do want to communicate what those possibilities are, and so we are tracking the bills that are out there. We are tracking the revenue very closely that we're receiving and looking for any other changes. But closing this deficit is going to be a challenge this year. We've got a number of touch points that come up. We'll know in the next few months where we are with some of our revenue projections after we get through. We've been through 4 months. I always say that if anything drastic has changed in the first 4 months than the previous 12 months, we didn't do our job well. And so I would say as we get into the 5th and 6th and 7th month, we'll know even better where those revenues are so we can project forward into fiscal year 27. We'll know property tax values in June and then finalized in early June and late June. We'll know operational efficiencies that are coming down the pipe. We maintain a rolling list of what those have been and then how they continue to accrue to realize savings in our budget, but then what are some new actions that the departments are taking to accomplish those operational efficiencies. And, there's a number of touch points that we've committed to. We'll be back here April 15th for another budget workshop. We would expect that we'll know a lot more about the state and federal environment at that point. I mentioned the preliminary property valuation, which will then follow another budget workshop so we can bring even more information back, a closer recommendation, an absolute recommendation on property taxes, but a closer recommendation on how to close any gap. And then, of course, finalizing that property valuation in July and adoption of the budget in September. With that, hopefully not too grim overview, I will ask you to take the recommended action that we have there, which is to accept our first quarter budget update, approve of budget amendments to bring some revenue into our general fund and into our electric fund and fire fund, and then any direction that you may have for the fiscal year 27 budget, I'll be glad to consider and work towards.
Robert?
All right, thank you.
All right, questions, directions, colleagues? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robert, the sales tax holidays, are there any new ones proposed that we know of in the legislature for this year?
I'm not aware of any.
I hadn't heard of any either.
No, none
Okay.
immediately come to mind, but I don't expect that the ones that have been in place will
eliminated.
be eliminated.
Yeah,
And so the returning to school and some sales, different times for gun sales, for example, there was a sales tax holiday. And then hurricane preparedness, how could I forget that? I probably don't want to mention that word since we've made it successfully. But no, I'm not aware of any, but we'll keep researching.
Commissioner Matlow.
Yes. Do we have public comment first, or are we?
We're just asking questions.
Just questions,
and
okay.
We're going to take public comment before we take action.
Okay. I don't have a direct question. I'll wait.
Sounds good. Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following up on Mayor Pro Tem's question, do we happen to know how much we are losing in revenue because of the sales tax holidays? Is that something we track?
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, when we're seeing about a 13% change in our
Okay.
sales tax and state revenue sharing.
Any other questions?
Yes. I know we've obviously had a lot of conversations about our goals to reach an ISO 1 rating. Do we have an idea of how much it will cost us to achieve, in our attempts to achieve that rating?
No, our focus right now is on where the fire services are now, what transition needs to occur between us and Leon County, which is 2.5, 3 years out. And so we're focused on that for right now. We haven't gone through, what we would typically do is bring back a rates consultant to work through those type of details of what the cost might be. And we'll learn a lot in these next few months and next year about how operations are changing so that we can inform that rate study the best way.
Okay, thank you, because it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's sort of two things happening at once. I mean, we have the goal to reach an ISO 1 rating. We're also going in a different direction with our own fire services, and one may help the other, but may not, without a more concerted effort and investment, we may not attain that ISO 1 rating. And so I am interested, of course, not only for the sake of knowing, but also because of the environment we're in, how much we think that might cost. And so I understand we're monitoring that, and we'll return to that conversation, but I am eager to learn more about that. The $2.1 million for the construction of an indoor training facility at the new public safety campus, can you remind me, was this already planned as part of the public safety complex? Like, was this already part of our budget had the appropriations not come through?
Yes, the indoor training facility was part of the
Okay, that's what I thought.
the police headquarters. So this defrays some of the costs.
Okay. Do you happen to know, or you, Mr. City Manager, when the public safety complex budget will come back to us? I believe it's been quite a while since we've seen those numbers, and I believe when we last did, we were expecting something more final to come back to us, and I'm not sure it ever did.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner, I believe it'll be in the capital budget. The total project value has settled. It for some time now. It's been settled somewhere between 135 and 140 million dollars. That includes the training facility, all the elements of the campus. And so I think probably the right timing is, and let me ask Robert. Robert, when do we feature the capital improvement plan in our workshop series?
Yeah, we sent out capital budget instructions yesterday, knowing that the feedback from this meeting would direct some of the actions that we'll take. Primarily, though, when we send out those instructions, we're asking for identification of the fifth year of any changes that are necessary. We expect very little change in the first 4 years, except for maybe some shifting around and some master projects. But yeah, we would bring that back in June when we have the results from the departments.
Thank you. To the FEMA reimbursement, do we happen to know the total outstanding reimbursements that are pending?
Yes.
And it could be a, general ballpark figure, doesn't need to be
So
exact.
some good news I was able to share the other day was we closed out Hermine. So the $14 million Hermine project was closed out. The good news is that everything we spent to ensure that we were reimbursed for that $14 million, there was an additional $1.3 million in monies for our administrative costs that were reimbursed, and so that'll go straight to the deficiencies fund. I'll look to Adam Benvenesti, who's our analyst, or Max. What are outstanding total is? Ballpark? Yeah. $40 to $45 million that we're still working towards for storms, the tornado primarily.
Thank you. And the 38 out of 40 score measurement that's assessed to us, what is that measuring exactly?
Yeah, it measures our ability to report on it measures our ability to respond to storms, our ability to then report on the costs that we incur during those storms, and then the plans that we have in place, not only to recover, but then to harden our system. The idea was that the higher the score, the faster a reimbursement would occur. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we haven't been in a storm that's been obligated to the point where we would get that money ahead of time. I think this was really predicated upon the idea that we need a training ground in order to make everyone more resilient. We were resilient and also very, very conscientious in all the departments about tracking costs. And so for us to meet that score was routine. I think then the idea was, okay, we'll bring the rest of the state along, and then we can, for some of the more constrained counties or cities, then some money can be advanced to them quicker and sooner. Fortunately, we have reserves. We've got good management practices, a whole array of ways to support storms that come along in an unexpected way.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, before we take action, we're going to have public comment. Traditionally, at workshops, we do not take public action unless we have to take formal action, which we do today. So, Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the budget workshop?
Mayor, we're about to find out. I'm not sure. We didn't have speakers, but we do
Understood.
have folks with speaker cards here. So if there are people who wish to
Excellent.
speak, if you'll just kind of raise a hand and we'll make sure you get a speaker card, and then we'll call on you.
That'd be great. And if y'all wouldn't mind just... Mr. Sims, come join us. Go ahead. Microphone's yours. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way. First off, Mayor, I want to say thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts with the budget. For the very first time, I went online to look at the budget, and it's not really user-friendly unless you got to know where something is to find. But my remarks here today is I would like to have a more clear estimate of how the reduction of property taxes is going to affect how we live in this community. And I love Mr. Williams. I mean, he's a good guy. But as you look at the information that is being presented to us as citizens, things are grouped. And so you really can't break down where money is here or where money is there because it's all grouped, you know, like you would, like salaries, you group them, like electric. It groups everything. It says to operate $16 million, I'm just giving an example, $16 million. There's not a place where we could go and see a breakdown that says, hey, for electric, we paid $2 million for poles, $8 million for wires, because that's user-friendly. That's what we can afford. And my last little bit is, can we have a better notice since public comment is being restricted? You know, and we should know 2 or 3, or not 2 or 3 months, but we should have some lag time before these cuts come so that you could hear from the community. But in our past history, we only learn of things when they're getting ready to go down. So thank you so much for allowing.
Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Patricia Allred. And at this point, Mayor, those are the only 2 speakers we have, so if there's someone else, please let us know.
Please come join us. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Patricia Allred. I live in Woodville, but I'm here representing our church, Town East Baptist, which is at 1055 Richview Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, Mayor, Commissioners, City officials. I'm here representing our church to formally protest the fire service fee under your resolution. Our first objection is a legal one. This fee violates the voluntariness doctrine established in the City of Ocala case. A valid user fee must be voluntary. Yet the city has bundled this charge with our essential utility bills. As the 5th District Court of Appeals famously ruled, the only options to avoid payment were to forego the city's water, sewer, electric services, or to move outside of the city. Neither presents a real choice. By threatening to shut off our power, water, electric, for non-payment, the city has converted this fee into an unconstitutional, involuntary tax. The 5th District Court summarized, if the service is mandatory for the city to provide and mandatory for the citizen to receive, the benefit is shared by the public, it is a tax. Federal protection and the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act states as a place of worship, we are protected by that act and the Florida Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Diverting our tithes to pay a mandatory ransom for utilities imposes a substantial burden on our mission. Our people already pay fire service fees. They give their tithes to the church. The church then has to, again, pay fire service fees. All right, thank you. We stand on the principle of predominant use. I'll just go ahead and close. The city is already facing litigation for this fee. We urge the commission to respect the constitutional and federal protections of our church. pause these fees and return the fire funding to the general fund where it belongs. If it looks like a tax, acts like a tax, and you're forced to pay it like a tax, it is a tax. Divers' weights are an abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good. The city is using divers' weights by calling a tax a fee just to get into the city's coffers. We would rather legislate this than litigate this. We support fire protection and public safety. Our concern is not with the service. The service is fantastic, but it's how it's funded. The city's fire service charge is imposed on churches, mandatory fee for the availability of
Thank
that
you.
service. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker.
All right, see no other speakers at this time, Mayor.
All right, I am looking for a motion for some direction. Any motion on the recommended action?
Move that we accept the recommended action as recommended by the budget.
Been properly
Direction.
moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Commissioner Matlow, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few priority recommendations, but I'm going to save them till our next budget hearing in light of seeing what the legislature is going to do. I think that'll be very informative of what we might recommend. I wanted to ask a follow-up question on what was said earlier. On the police station cost of $145 million, does that include the purchase of the Northwood property site or the site work that is done on the property?
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, the project is between 135 and 140 million. I want to say it's 138 and change. That does not include the purchase of the property. It does include certain elements of site work. The property as a whole has been prepared with utilities and roads, and that'll be assigned to the parcel value. And then as the city commission decides to use that land, sell the land, whatever the transaction is, that's where that cost will travel with those future parcels.
Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you. It would be helpful to just know those numbers, knowing what we have invested into it that's not attributed to the police station going forward. I assume a part of it would be attributed based on their parking needs and infrastructure to access it. I'm not sure how we separate. I know we did this stormwater pond for the new development and the other site, so just having a more compartmentalized idea of how that budget's being allocated. I wanted to ask about the project 26051, the $2 million for the electric and gas utility budget. What is that project specifically?
Yes, it's new new service installations. I don't know the location of those, but the original estimate for that master project, they've estimated the need for another $2 million. So it's in residential development sites, and we can ask Electric for those details.
Okay. Is there anyone here who could answer which residential properties those are attributed to?
Tony Geen is our general manager of electric. He might be able to shed more light on it. It wouldn't be for specific properties. This would be general growth at a rate higher than we would have otherwise
Tony,
expected.
come join the party.
This on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not for any specific one specific project. So that's our master project for all new services. And then as the year goes on, we see more, as we've seen more development. We just know we're going to need that more money as the year's going on. It's no one specific project. It's throughout the entire city in our service territory.
Do you know how many residential units that amount serves?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. Yeah, again, it's citywide, and it's a combination of residential, commercial, anything new that we're building out for new customers.
Okay. And have we seen growth outside of what we predicted going into the budget year to make this amendment now?
No, we're seeing kind of a standard growth. It's just some of the costs have gone up. So it's been a combination of things. We're actually looking forward as we look at our budget going into next year and making sure we're requesting the correct amount and adjusting where the money's coming from in those masters. So it's nothing nothing out of the ordinary that we're seeing.
Okay, thank you. It was just a high amount, so I was
Yeah.
just asking the questions
that's-
of
yeah, good
what
questions,
caused
thank
it
you.
and if we're projecting too low or what the case might be. But that's helpful, and we
Yeah.
can follow up
Okay.
on the details later. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And final comment, well, back on the fire rate. Robert, can you help me on the monitoring of the fire fee of, are we expecting, we just had the fire fee increase. Are we expecting increased costs due to the separation from the county, or why are we not in a green position when we just raised the fee?
We're not in a green position because the full impacts of the rate study were not implemented. And so we only applied a rate to the citizens in the city of Tallahassee rather than across all of Leon County. And so it's just going to take careful attention that as we make the transition, that we're still providing services outside of the city limits. And so, but we're doing it at a rate that's set for only internal to the city. And so managing those costs is, that, we're going to come to a reckoning at some point that the difference is going to be apparent, and we're going to have to make a decision at that point how to reconcile that.
Okay, and so when do you think we will get to a new rate study?
I think we would go through fiscal year 26. We would see where we stand at the end of fiscal year 26 and what that surplus looks like, what the reserves look like, and then make a decision at that point on doing another rate study, making recommendations.
Okay, so the fee that we raised on city property tax, city customers?
Residential.
Residential,
Customers.
thank you. We cut the new fire station and on Lake Bradford, that's not being part of the budget right now, is that correct?
I wouldn't say that, no, we're not building it at the level, at the size that we were going to build it to serve the larger community, but we are looking at resizing it and what it would then, what requirements it would need to meet for working inwards within the city.
Okay, and so how is that considered in the current budget? Is it still line item to be funded at a certain size, or do we
Yes.
know that new? Okay.
Yes.
Do we know the new
Not
cost?
determined yet,
Okay,
no.
yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I know that's just up in the air, so I'll follow up with that, later this year as we have more information. And the last thing on the fire fee, Mr. Mayor, and you can let me know if you think it's appropriate at a budget workshop or at a general body meeting, but I'd like to have a longer conversation to have information come back to explore transferring how we collect fire services to the property tax bill as a special assessment and get it away from the utility bill. And I'm also interested in reopening a conversation about exemptions for religious institutions. I've heard from quite a few new churches and temples that previously paid some or didn't pay at all that are now highly concerned about the new price, as well as others who have been paying it all along. I think what I would like to see is us move to a special assessment on the property tax bill and get away from the kind of types of use fees that we're seeing, and then look for a exemption for religious institutions. I know that's not related directly to the budget. Should that be, do you feel that better brought up here or at a general body meeting?
I'm not interested in either unless it's a recommendation coming from staff that is the appropriate direction that we need to go. I have served now for 20 years in this community, both as a county commissioner and a city commissioner. I'm very familiar on both sides. My concern is that we have contemplated over the years making the assessment part of the ad valorem, and with all the conversations that are taking place at ad valorem right now on the state level, on top of the impacts that it would have in this community in particular. I've been through that. I've had that conversation. I'm very comfortable where we are unless there is another recommendation that comes forward from staff. What's the appropriate route to go?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for clarification, I'm not proposing adding to ad valorem. I'm proposing a special assessment line item for fire fees, fire services on the property tax bill. So it wouldn't be a general fund ad valorem proposal.
Point,
Yeah, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Commissioner Matlow, I think I hear what you're saying, but I think we saw what happened in our community when folks got taxed for their fire services fee on an annualized basis instead of a monthly basis. That causes some impact on folks who are maybe having trouble paying their property taxes as it is. And to annualize as opposed to a monthly fee for fire services, that would cause me some concerns. So just want to register that would cause me some concerns.
Noted. Well, I think I'll bring this to the meeting tonight because I do think addressing the mayor's concerns, this will probably require a staff analysis and a full agenda item to explore. So I'll bring that back for information to come forward at this evening's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Let me go ahead and state on the record, I will not be supporting it because we are currently in litigation on this issue right now, and it would not be appropriate to have a public meeting while we're currently in litigation. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear in my discussion of any action that might come before us tonight. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Robert, I know Commissioner Matlow just asked questions about the increase for city residents. Had we adopted the original rate, would that have put us in because we couldn't adopt the original rate because that was proposed because it required a supermajority vote. And because we were not able to do that, we had to punt back to where we were. Had we done that, would that have put us in a better position?
So thanks for the question. If I understand correctly, the supermajority vote was on the rollback of the millage rate. That would have realized additional revenues in our general fund. We work to keep the fire services separate because the universe of who we are able to bill is greater than the property tax, the universe of those who pay property taxes and the exemptions that they get. So I'm not sure if that answers your questions directly, but those are the two the differentiation that I see in those two areas.
It did because as I've seen in the past, when there's a deficit in one of these entities, the money has to come from somewhere else. And so when we deplete or don't provide the additional monies into somewhere else, then that means we have to dig deeper to dig it out of the hole. So I just wanted to have that clear in my mind. The other question that I have is regarding FEMA. We talk like things are normal. It's taken forever for us to get the money for Hermine from FEMA. And with what's happening on the national scene with FEMA and the funding and the cuts and the this and the that, the possibility of, we don't know what's happening with FEMA. So to know that we have, 40 million plus still out there, we may or may not ever realize that because of the current situation that we're in financially. So again, we're kind of at the mercy of someone else to determine whether we'll be able to recoup those dollars or not. Likewise, as you mentioned, and I think this needs to be highlighted, that in the city of Tallahassee, 40% of our properties are off the tax roll. So we're already operating at a deficit as far as property tax is concerned. And Mr. Sims, you asked a question about how can you see how that's going to impact you. The Florida League of Cities has a wonderful website out there where you can put in your city, and it will show you very clearly what the impact of not having property tax, what it means to any city in the state of Florida. They've done a great job in researching it. So I recommend anyone who may not be aware of that to go to just Google Florida League of Cities and that website to find what the impact of property taxes, lack of property taxes will be on our community. It's there very, very clearly. So, and again, thank you all for the work that you do. I know that this first meeting is always the most painful one, but the healing begins once we figure out where it hurts, so we know where to apply this salve. I was going to say Neosporin and the Band-Aids. So as we go forward, thank you all for the work that you're doing. And we're Florida League of Cities, and I'm on every Monday listening to what's happening. The property tax bill, I think, is something, I can't remember, it's property tax and utilities coming up tomorrow on the floor for discussion. So we all just need to stay woke, pay attention, and Godspeed to all of us, that what happens across the street won't hurt us too bad.
Yeah.
Mr. Manager, comment?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just tag on to what Commissioner Williams-Cox was saying, and I think we may have discussed this time last year, but as it relates to the expenses related to severe storms and events like that, the ability to recover, we're very grateful that we can recover those kind of dollars. They take a long time, and we've been tracking this around the state. Many of our peer cities and counties have begun to establish dedicated reserves to these kind of efforts, funding mechanisms and replenishment mechanisms for that. I think we need to remain mindful of that in the future. Robert and his team, honestly, they make it look a little too easy. That's a compliment, by the way. And they do a great job tracking the expenses and recovering them as fast as we can. But year after year, if you have these kind of events, they will strain our system. And it may be an inevitable thing where you need that kind of reserve for those things. You brought it up. I think it's a good point. We're seeing it. Our peers are doing it. We've not had to do it yet. Robert and his team are doing a great job. Our electric utilities doing a great job. You name it, to make it work. But they're very, very straining on the finances, because when we have an event like that, we will spend however much money it takes to recover quickly. So I just wanted to make that point while we were on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. I want to thank our incredible team for all the great work that you do. And Adam, I'm just impressed that you pulled that number off the top of your head. That must keep you up at night thinking about FEMA, I'm telling you. Y'all do a great job, though. Thank you.
Excellent.
Motion on the table made by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are adjourned until 3 o'clock for the City Commission meeting.